Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Oh Really Podcast. My name is Jess, and I'm your podcast host today. And if you don't already know, I love talking about taboo topics, and I split them into 3 categories. I do vulnerable, challenging, and spicy taboo topics, and absolutely just froth every single topic I cover. Now, I've just done a herpes series, and this is honestly the best episode to follow my herpes series because it's all about vaginal health. And I think it's just such an important topic to talk about because women in particular just have so much shame when it comes to anything funky that their hoo-ha is going through, whether it's itchiness, whether it feels uncomfortable, whether it's pain. And we need to start talking about this stuff because so many simple things such as nutrition can help so many women out there. So it's just about talking about this stuff and creating, just creating the conversation. So I have chosen such an epic guest, who is perfect for this episode. Her name is Adrienne, and she is the Yoni nutritionist. So you probably already follow her because a lot of people follow her already. I've been following her for bloody ages, but she's been doing some really incredible reels that just honestly caught my attention, mainly about herpes and the fact that you can, cater your nutrition to really help minimize outbreaks. And I just thought, this is a topic we need to talk about and cover. So, Adrienne, thank you so much for coming on Oh Really Podcast. I am so excited. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I would love to start the episode with talking about how on earth did you get into vaginal health nutrition? Because that is such a specific type of way of being a nutritionist. So did you start off being a nutritionist or did you just go straight for vaginal health?
Yeah, it's a very specific niche. I know everybody thought I was crazy when I told my friends and family that I was going to start doing this, but it's so needed. And I started doing vaginal health and specializing in vaginal health after I did my holistic nutrition school and training and education, just because I have struggled with my own vaginal health issues my entire life. And the only thing that helped me was when I changed my diet, and nobody told me about that. My doctor couldn't help me. We weren't taught about this stuff in school. And when I was going through the peak of my recurring vaginal infections, which were yeast infections, BV, it was as a result of candida overgrowth. I figured out on my own that all I had to do was change my diet. And I thought that I was eating healthy before, but I definitely wasn't, not for my body. And when I did the Candida diet for the first time, this was even before I became a nutritionist, and it cleared up my symptoms within 4 weeks. I was getting recurring yeast infections every month before my period for a year. I was getting all kinds of other symptoms that were related to Candida overgrowth that I had no idea were connected to my gut health. So when I did this diet, everything changed, and I was like, I quit my corporate career and I went back to school to study holistic nutrition so that I could help other women who are dealing with this. Because I'm like, if I'm going through all of this, surely I'm not the only one.
You're absolutely not the only one.
And women need help.
They do. You go, girlfriend.
Yeah, because, our doctors can only take us so far with, treating symptoms of infections, which of course we need. But then there's such a huge gap between holistic health and Western medicine. And that's where I'm here to help close that gap and educate people on the importance of their diet to their vaginal health, but also help them if they're struggling with recurring vaginal infections. So that's kind of where I specialize in now.
I love it. And honestly, I'm so glad that there are people like you to help close the gap because you're so right. Now, FYI, people, if you're hearing some noises in the background when Adrienne was speaking, it's the sound of waves because she's at a beautiful lake right now. And I know they're waves. So I'm thinking, oh my God, that's like so relaxing. But the audience, FYI, if you're listening and you're like, what the hell is that noise? They're peaceful waves in the background.
They're peaceful waves. It's 8 a.m. in the morning in Canada right now, and I'm at a cottage, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful morning, and the waves are just rolling in. So sorry if you can hear it.
They look so pretty, honestly. But yes, I was actually it was soothing for me. But yeah, I just wanted to let the audience know now. If you hear some weird noises, that's what it is. Now, back to your point about, that gap and how Western health compared to holistic health. Now, I'm a healthcare professional myself. I've been a nurse for nearly 12 years. And I know for a fact that, doctors do not get nutritional training at all. Their job at the end of the day is to medicate and, send a specialist. At the end of the day, they listen to your symptoms. They have a very short amount of time with you, and they need to think, okay, what medication am I prescribing? What specialist appointment am I sending them off to? That's the plan. They don't really think of being like, oh, go see a nutritionist, because they don't really understand it, to be honest. It's like, if they don't understand something, why would then they refer someone to it? What they do understand is medication and referring to the specialist. So I understand there's such a huge gap with this area. But myself, I actually got my very first lot of bacterial vaginosis. It was very mild, thankfully. But I had some funny symptoms, went to the doctor, did a swab, and got BV. And I was like, I've never had this in my life. This is wild. And since I've been open about it, I've had people tell me how like horrific stories of them having it for like 5-6 years and never really understood. And then they finally went to the doctor and got the treatment, and it affected their sex life, their confidence. It affected so many parts of their life, which is another reason why I was like, I am doing this episode, because I didn't realize that there were women out there dealing with this stuff on the day-to-day basis.
And that's the thing too. And like you were saying, doctors only have a certain amount of time, and they only have a knowledge capacity for certain things, medication, figuring out a solution, of course, which we need. But they're missing such a huge piece of the puzzle, which is not only addressing the root causes of this stuff, because like this stuff these infections just don't happen out of thin air. There's a reason why these things happen, especially if they keep happening. And then there's this entire whole other emotional component to all of this. And it really does impact the lives of so many women when you're struggling with one infection or multiple infections over years. It really does affect the quality of your life in so many ways, and it can affect your self-confidence and just the way you're showing up in the world. And this is the thing. A lot of people feel so alone in their journeys when they're struggling with these recurring health issues, especially in our most intimate parts. And it can make sex really stressful and traumatic for people, which is sad, because sex is meant to be enjoyed, and it's one of the most pleasurable experiences that we can have in our lives. But a lot of people have a lot of trauma around that, and we store that trauma and these emotions in our yonis and in our vaginas. And honestly, I could go off on that. But it really is true. And when you're trying to deal with like recurring vaginal infections, recurring vaginal health issues, you really have to address it from a holistic standpoint to look at all of those things, not only your diet, but what's going on in your life, your lifestyle, your mindset, stress, emotions, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like everyone will have a very individualized approach with what's going on with them. So I know on your website you offer like one-on-one coaching, and you can really dive deep into, that particular person's issue and then looking at everything holistically. But I think this episode will be good just to kind of, touch the points of like a few things and just give a little bit of knowledge for people out there. So things such as, frequent UTIs and yeast infections and stuff. I know they're all different infections. Is there like, a correlation of like why all these are happening, or are they all very individual? Because I know hormones would play quite a significant role in a few of these. Maybe we'll talk about yeast infections, because I know that a lot of people are getting yeast infections. What's the main thing that kind of triggers that for so many women?
Well, yeast infections, if you're getting just one here and there, and they could be just because, you've been sitting in a wet bathing suit for too long, or you've been having a lot of sex, and, you've become irritated and maybe you had a bit of tearing. If it's just happening one off, then it might not be anything chronic or a deeper issue to worry about. But I always say, if it happens 4 or more times a year, what I've learned in the 5.5 years that I've been working as the Yoni nutritionist is it's connected. These infections are connected to a bunch of different things that's going on in the body. First of all, it's connected to your gut health. So yeast infections particularly is related to a fungal overgrowth in your gut, because it's a fungus, the yeast. So that's what you have to address when you're getting 4 or more yeast infections a year. But it is also connected to hormones, which is also connected to your gut. a lot of women get yeast infections right before their periods. That's what was happening to me when my candida overgrowth was at its worst. It was every month right before my period for a year. But it's also connected to inflammation. It's also connected to stress, your nervous system. It's also connected to your blood sugar levels. And there's a science behind this. And this is why you've got to address the root cause, which is your gut health first, if you are getting recurring infections of any kind, but particularly yeast infections.
Yeah, I think the only knowledge that some people have, I guess, with the yeast infections is, okay, I'll go to the pharmacy, I'll tell them I've got thrush, and I'll get given the medication to treat it. Is that just kind of treating like the top layer of it? It's not really helping treat the root cause, is it? So it's just helping. Does it just cover a couple of layers of the fungal infection, but then it's kind of just still sitting in the body and it's just going to keep reflaring over and over?
Exactly. Yeah, it's it's a Band-Aid. It's a temporary fix just to give you some relief, of course, which we need, and it's treating the source at the location, in the vagina, inside of the vagina. But it does go much deeper than your vaginal health, and it is rooted in your gut. And that's really what is the main root cause of all of these things, is your gut health. So that's why your diet is so important. And people just don't even realize that. Like sugar, for example, is one of the worst things that you can eat in general, but especially for your vaginal health, especially if you're getting yeast infections, because that's the yeast's favorite food.
Okay. So there's so much more to than just, popping a probiotic every single day, which, definitely beneficial for your health, but it's not going to really dig deep into what you need to do. Can we talk about a couple of the nutritional things that people can do if they're listening to this and they're like, oh my God, I absolutely get more than 4 a year yeast infections and I keep going to the pharmacy and just popping that tablet? What are some basic nutritional changes that they could do?
The best thing that you can do is take a look at your sugar intake and recognizing that sugar is in everything. And if asking yourself, are you eating a lot of sugar? Because that's the number one thing that you should be reducing when you're getting recurring yeast infections. You want to reduce any kind of inflammation. So the inflammatory foods are gluten, dairy, sugar, everybody's favorite.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
But those are things that you can easily start to reduce and or eliminate out of your diet, and replacing them with non-dairy things or gluten-free things, and really getting off the sugar, because the less sugar you eat, the less sugar you crave. It's not as hard as you think. Trust me.
Okay. What about sucrose? What about fruit? Is that still similar with sugar or no?
So fruit is still sugar. It's fructose. And sugar it doesn't matter where it's coming from. I mean, the sugar in fruit is more of a slow burn because you get the fiber along with it. And everybody says, oh, it's a healthier sugar. Not when you live with a candida overgrowth and you're getting recurring yeast infections. No, you have to look at your sugar intake in the form of fruit as well, because that's also feeding the yeast.
Yeah. See, I didn't even know about that because I said freaking sucrose. I said sucrose over fructose. Don't even know what the toasts are.
Yeah, but anything ending in OSE, which is really important to learn, because there's glucose, fructose, sucrose, maltose, there's all kinds. And this is why it's so important to read your food labels when you're buying prepackaged foods, and recognizing that sugar is in everything. And when you see that OSE at the end of an ingredient, it's sugar. It's just called something else,
That's already an epic takeaway.
Yeah, a lot of these prepackaged, processed foods hide sugar in the ingredients. It's just written differently, So you got to be really careful with the food that you're buying. And that would be my next tip, is stick with whole foods as much as you can, a whole foods diet, and really moderate the processed prepackaged foods that you're consuming, because again, sugar isn't everything, artificial ingredients, all kinds of shit that you don't even know what you're putting into your body. A whole foods diet is the best way to go.
Okay. All right. I already got the biggest takeaway just then, OSE. Didn't even know maltose even existed. So very, very good to know about that. And in terms of would you suggest kind of going gluten-free or just reducing your gluten intake?
Just reducing the gluten intake and noticing how you feel after you eat gluten. Do you feel any kind of inflammation? Like, do you feel bloating, gas? Do you feel like you're kind of like swollen and puffy? Those are big indicators of inflammation. And when your body is in an inflamed state, it weakens your immune system and it leaves you more susceptible to recurring infections.
I think so many people, when they're like, I'm going to be so healthy, and they'll make themselves like a smoothie, for breakfast, and they're just going to be feeding that fungal infection. And it's those simple little changes, right, that can just make such a big difference.
And it depends on what you put in your smoothie. If you're putting high sugar fruits into your smoothies, like bananas and mangoes and all of those things, yeah. But you can make smoothies that have lower sugar fruits and greens and celery and stuff like that. Protein, you want to make sure you're eating a lot of protein, especially in the morning. So there's lots of other things that you can, tweak so that you can reduce your sugar intake, but still eat in the same similar way.
All right. Amazing. Now, can we chat a little bit about bacterial vaginosis? Because as I said, I had my first bout of it this year and I'm still a little bit clueless about it. I was really shocked, but I know that mine was very, very mild. And when I spoke to a friend of mine who had a very quite severe case of it for years and years, I didn't realize how severe it actually could get. Can you run through what actually is bacterial vaginosis?
Yeah, bacterial vaginosis is such a bitch because
yes,
it's a really stubborn bacteria, and it's different from yeast because yeast is a fungal infection and bacterial vaginosis is a bacterial infection. And you need antibiotics to treat it. You can't, sometimes it can clear up on its own, but I forget the exact numbers, but the chances of BV coming back once you get an infection are very high. So you really want to address and treat the bacterial infection. Unfortunately, we can't avoid the antibiotics in most cases. But the most common symptoms of BV is, the very well-known fishy smell. But sometimes it can be metallic. Sometimes it can smell like a copper. Sometimes it can be really pungent. A yeast infection smells like sourdough bread. It's like a little bit more sour.
Okay, good to know. Okay.
Or you know what beer smells like? Like it's very yeasty, right? Like you can tell what's a BV and what's a yeast infection because they do feel very similar.
Okay.
In terms of like redness, itching, inflammation, irritation when, in your inside of your vagina and outside on your vulva. But the discharge too with BV is a little bit different than yeast. Yeast is more like cottage cheesy and white, whereas BV can be either thick and lotiony or gray.
Okay.
Or it can be like clear and watery, like very, very watery.
This is fascinating. I'm actually learning so much.
Yeah. Yeah. But BV is a bit more of a stubborn bacteria to get rid of because again, like this bacteria is very resistant and it's strong. So you want to make sure that you're treating the infection, but also maintaining your gut health with your diet at the same time, because when you take the antibiotics to treat an infection, of course, you're losing a lot of the bad and the good bacteria inside of your gut and your vaginal microbiome because they're very much connected. So again, that's why your diet is so important to replenish the good bacteria while you're getting rid of the bad.
So obviously I got that mild case of BV for the first time. I went on the hardcore antibiotics. And then a little bit later, I started getting some symptoms again, but they were different. So I went and got a swab again, but then I had a fucking yeast infection because of the antibiotics. And then I was like, now I have to deal with thrush. I was like, it was like a 6-week journey for me because it's like I had some symptoms. I got the swab, had BV, had antibiotics, and then got symptoms again, but they were different. And then I had a swab again, and then I had to do thrush treatment. So then I did another swab, and then finally I had nothing. Hoo-ha was fine and clear. But I was like, what a journey. 6 weeks. And this was like a brand new beginning thing. And I'm really onto it with my hoo-ha. So even that just was draining the fuck out of me. Because that's 6 weeks as well that I wasn't feeling sexy. I wasn't feeling confident. I wasn't having any sex. I just completely just stayed away from even going out on dates because my hoo-ha was sore, So yeah, very big takeaway there. I also even took probiotics, and I made sure to time them, after the antibiotics, like a few hours after, and I still got caught with it. So that was sucky. In terms of nutrition, when it comes to a bacterial infection, what foods are kind of good with helping I guess, treat? Because I know we're going to have to take antibiotics regardless. Or would you just kind of, would your advice just be while you're treating it, just focus on helping the fungal side of things and reducing the sugar?
Exactly. So it's basically the same thing as I was just saying, reducing anything that's inflammatory, gluten, dairy, sugar, getting rid of the processed crap, getting rid of the junk foods, really cleaning up your diet so that you can not only so it's more of a gut health maintenance thing. The thing is you can't treat or heal these infections with your diet. It's not strong enough. You need medication or over-the-counter treatments, depending on the infection, to treat the symptoms. But then it's maintaining your gut health during that time to rebuild the good bacteria in your gut and, trying to get rid of the bad bacterial overgrowth by eliminating its food source. You're not going hungry. You're just not feeding the bad bacteria the sugar. You're not creating an inflamed environment in your body so that your immune system is suppressed, so that you're more prone to these infections. You got to keep your immune system strong, reduce any kind of inflammation, and keep your gut happy and healthy.
Love it. Love it. Now, is this the same for UTIs, the same kind of advice, or is UTIs tailored a little bit differently?
It's the same. UTIs is also a different infection, which also need to be treated with antibiotics. Trust me, you don't want to do not fuck with a UTI. Do not ever leave that untreated because it can spread up to your kidneys and you don't want that. So always treat a UTI. But that's a different kind of bacteria. BV is Gardnerella vaginalis. UTIs are usually E. coli. Again, another stubborn bacteria with very stubborn biofilms. So you want to make sure that you're getting rid of the infection with the antibiotics, but again, reducing inflammation in your body, boosting your immune system, making sure that you're eating really well to replenish the good bacteria in your gut and vaginal microbiomes. And it's not just a diet. It really is a lifestyle change when you are dealing with these infections over and over. Because like you said, you were on this, you were out for 6 weeks with this horrible cycle of BV and then yeast. Imagine so many women who are dealing with this over and over and over again in a year. And they're on this cycle of either UTIs or BV, then they go on antibiotics, and then they get a yeast infection. And then a couple months go by where they're good, and then they get another BV infection, and it's the cycle all over again. And that can, again, just start becoming really difficult in so many ways, as you've experienced yourself.
Yeah, agreed. And I think if there is some men listening to this podcast as well, even just having sex and maybe not being as lubricated down there, something like that, and having that little bit of extra friction, that can cause things like thrush and infections down there just from that. And also having unprotected sex and the different flora of having, a different penis inside you, or maybe it's your same partner. It doesn't matter. There's just always flora exchange. And our freaking vaginas are so close to our buttholes. There's always cross-contamination going on. That's why you got to wipe the correct way and all those things. And people just don't think about it. Even using toys as well, not cleaning toys properly as well can actually, and that's actually how I got my BV, is because I was using toys and I reflected back and I wasn't cleaning them as well as I probably should have, and then using them again. So that's definitely kind of how I contracted it, and I reflected and I was like, I need to buy proper toy cleaners and do proper maintenance with this because I don't want to get that again. But I think, a lot of guys don't really realize it's just those simple little changes, cleaning toys properly, using lubrication. Lube is, your best friend in the bedroom. You can't just rely on your natural lubrication. Use some extra fucking lube. It's just those simple little changes.
The quality of the lube too is really important. You want to use a water-based lube, not silicone or oil-based. Stay away from that because it's hard to wash off. Think about an oil-based or a silicone-based lube and put it on your hand, how hard it is to wash off. You want to get a water-based lube because otherwise it can also collect bacteria and create more infections. And please do me and yourselves all a favor to always pee after sex. Always, always, always. Don't get, I know it's hard when you're cuddling and you're sweet. No, just take the 5 minutes, get up, pee, and come back. Just do it.
Yeah. Great takeaway. Great takeaway. My favorite lube brand is Uber Lube. It is actually the best lube brand I've ever used in my life. Do you have any recommendations for good lube?
Oh, it's tough because it's depending on where you are in the world. There's so many different brands and so many different. I don't have one specific. Oh, I do have one specific brand that I work with, but it's only available in North America. So it's kind of, yeah, it's tough to recommend a specific brand, but just make sure you're getting a good quality water-based lube.
All right, everybody, I'm going to interrupt the episode because it's time to play Two Truths and a Lie. So we're going to break up the episode and we're going to learn a little bit more about Adrian. You know, we've been talking about hoo-has a lot and about nutrition, but let's actually learn about Adrian. So I would love for you to tell me, what are your two truths and a lie? And I am going to try and guess what your lie is.
Okay. I've lived with herpes for over 20 years. I guess I would probably have an 80% disclosure success rate. And I haven't been married twice.
You haven't been married twice. Okay, so I know the first one's true. I know over 20 years. And an 80%, as in six, did you say success rate? As in like, yeah, success rate. That's cool. Okay, I like that. And you haven't been married twice. I feel like maybe you have been married twice and that is your lie. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Do you know why? Because people are doing this to me and they try and twist the question around to confuse me. And I'm like, I gotcha. I gotcha.
I feel like two is so obvious because like two truths and a lie. Like I said the lie at the end.
I know. It's a really hard one to do. I was originally going to do a two truths and a lie to my guest every episode as like a fun game that we both play. But I was like, I can't fucking think of that many two truths and a lie. That is like, it's already hard to think of one lot of two truths and a lie.
Yeah.
But way to go with the success rate. I feel like I've got this like a similar success rate. Like, you know, yes, there's rejections that happen, but majority of the time, people are fine with it. And I have practiced this conversation many, 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 many times.
Yeah, same. I mean, I've been single and dating for 10 years and I've had a lot of conversations about this. And I think it really just comes down to your own, like my own confidence in myself with it. And, you know, the person on the receiving end of a disclosure conversation is only as confident as you are in yourself with it, because a lot of people just don't know about it still. So if you're confident about it and going into these conversations with confidence, they're going to be confident too in you. But sometimes, you know, they're not okay with that, and that's okay. That's why we disclose and give them the choice that we never had. Most of us didn't have. And the next person will be okay with it. I can promise you that. A lot of people do not care.
Yeah. I honestly, I couldn't agree more, because I find the same thing. And there's a lot of people that are just uneducated. But if you go in with fear and you act like this virus is like the worst thing in the world, and it's going to ruin your life, if that's how you feel mentally and you're bringing that energy into a sexual relationship, of course they're going to be freaked the fuck out and they're going to be like, whoa, I don't want this death sentence. But if you work on yourself and you understand the virus and you understand that 80% of the Australian freaking population have herpes and 12% have genital herpes, when you understand those statistics and you understand your symptoms and actually just accept it, then you can have those conversations, because then you just have success after success after success.
Yeah. And it really is creating a better relationship, not only with your body and your vagina and your sexuality, your sexual health, but with the virus and your diagnosis. Because when you are, like you were just saying, when you're feeling a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and you're just feeling a lot of stress and anxiety and emotions around it, of course, like, not to diminish those feelings, but that is going to come across and come out when you're talking to people about it. But if you get really good within yourself with it, and you're confident and you know that you're taking the best care of yourself with it, and you know how your body works with it, and you're doing everything that you can to manage it, that's when you start becoming more confident with it and having confident conversations about it, because it doesn't have to be just a bomb drop disclosure. It can be like a casual sexual health conversation and just be like, I have this. What, like, when was the last time you were tested? What have you dealt with before? Because if you're sexually active and you haven't come across somebody who hasn't come across something before, you know, there's a lot of stuff going around out there. It's just a part of being a sexually active human. It doesn't mean that you're dirty or slutty or whatever. It just this stuff happens.
It's true. I think that was an amazing two truths and a lie. And it's a really good segue into now talking about herpes and the best nutrition that you can take to support herpes. All right, everybody, we're going to get back into the episode. Okay, great takeaway. Now, the next topic I want to talk about is something that I'm really excited to chat about, and it's nutrition for herpes. So I have herpes. I've just done a herpes series. I'm pretty blessed in the fact that I understood very early on what my triggers were in terms of symptoms. I still take antivirals if I'm, constantly with a partner just to kind of protect them, but I don't take them regularly if I'm single, because I feel like nutrition, taking care of myself, getting good sleep, that actually helps me manage my symptoms. But I would love to get all your knowledge about, different types of nutritional ways to help manage symptoms, because there's so many people that are so conflicted with Googling and, lysine and, different type of antiviral remedies. Let's get into the herpes talk.
Oh God, yes. This is my favorite because I've also lived with herpes for 20 years, over 20 years now. So I know a lot.
Yes, bring
about it. And trust me, I have tried everything on myself. Not only, with my knowledge and education as a nutritionist, but just the years of experience of trial and error. And also, years of talking to people and supporting people with herpes. And it's kind of funny with the diet stuff because some people are really sensitive to foods and some people aren't. And this is kind of when it is a personal trial and error to figure out what works for you. And sometimes that takes time. But what I can say is generally, you have to understand that herpes is a virus, but it's also a virus that lies in your nervous system. So two things you have to be mindful of here is it's a virus, so it depends on the health of your immune system. And because it's a virus that lies in the nerves, it depends on the health of your nervous system. Both of those things are connected to your gut health. And a lot of people also have connections with their periods and getting, outbreaks at different phases of their monthly cycle, especially for women. So, of course, it's connected to hormones, and that's also connected to your gut health. So, again, another reason why diet is so important for all of this. But what you want to do, again, is similar to what I was talking about with the yeast, BV, and UTIs, is reduce inflammation in your body. Because when your body is in a chronic state of inflammation, it weakens your immune system. So again, herpes needs the strength of your immune system to keep outbreaks away and to manage and prevent outbreaks from coming up and transmission to partners. So you want to make sure that you are reducing inflammation in your body. So enjoying your favorite treats in moderation, the gluten, dairy, sugars. Alcohol is also a big one for people. Coffee is a big one for people because coffee particularly can increase your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormones. That can affect your nervous system. And again, this is just general. It's not the same for everybody. I don't mean to scare everybody to think like, oh my God, I can't ever eat or drink these things again. No, trust me, I'd crush a bottle of wine on the weekends and I'm drinking some coffee right now. But it really is awareness and understanding that some of these things can be triggers for people. Also, the biggest thing is the lysine and arginine situation. So you were talking earlier. So lysine and arginine are two amino acids that are found in multiple sources of protein and many different sources of food. Everything has lysine and arginine in them. And if you can take away anything from this, it's remembering that arginine is bad.
Okay.
And lysine is good.
I've never even heard of arginine before. I'm like, what is this?
Okay, so arginine is the amino acid that can replicate the herpes virus. So yeah, and some of the foods that are high in arginine are, of course, some of our favorites. Nuts and seeds, chocolate. It's found in a lot of protein, meat.
My mind's already blowing. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. oats, bananas. There are certain foods that are higher in arginine that you want to be mindful of when you live with herpes, because peanuts, for example, is one of the biggest triggers for people. Peanuts, peanut butter, anything peanut related, but nuts and seeds too, like almonds, all of them are big triggers because they're higher in arginine. Yeah, even like, nut milks and dairy alternatives with nut, stuff like that. That can be a trigger for people. And then the good guy is lysine. So that helps prevent that DNA replication of the herpes virus. So you can supplement with lysine, but lysine is also found in a lot of foods as well. So you just want to make sure you're trying to balance them both. But it can be really hard because everything contains lysine and arginine. And it's like, how do you keep track of it all? Well, it really, again, is just trial and error, seeing what works for you and what doesn't work for you, making sure that you're paying attention to, if you do get an outbreak, if you live with herpes, what have I eaten recently that might have triggered it, if that is even the case, and making sure that you're supplementing with lysine and other immune boosting supplements as well, like zinc, vitamin D, vitamin B, vitamin C, making sure your immune system is supported and your nervous system is also supported as well.
Okay, so you're a pro on actual, like the tablet form of lysine to add into your day. Because lysine is obviously something that I had researched and I take it as well. I buy the one, like I always look in the pharmacy and I look at the actual strength, because you should never just look at the bottle, because it's very like, it acts like it's high strength, but you don't even know. So you look at the milligram dosage. I forgot at the top of my head what is the best dose, but I always try and get the highest strength lysine. What are the types of foods out there that are high in lysine that are good to add into the diet?
It's hard to list them all and to know them all off by heart, but making sure that you're doing, like, for example, the low GI fruits, berries are really good. They're high in antioxidants, high in vitamin C, good for your immune system. Making sure that you're eating good sources of protein, lean sources of protein, making sure that you're eating all the greens, sweet potatoes, whole grains like quinoa, stuff like that. Those are really, really good for you. And just limiting the inflammatory foods, you don't have to cut them out completely, but just enjoying in moderation. What I like to do is 80%, 70 to 80% whole foods, 30% enjoy my life. It's a balance. So yeah, like, again, I've had to change my entire life around my vagina and I still enjoy, trust me, but I'm very mindful of the foods that I eat and my body, and if anything, what my triggers are, and making sure that if I'm starting to not feel great, making sure that I'm cleaning it up.
Now, it's so good. I remember when I was first diagnosed, I was trying to track like my outbreaks and whatnot. So I would put like a little star emoji in my calendars. And that would be like a little like symbol of like, that's when I had an outbreak, so that I knew I wasn't writing herpes on my calendar for everyone to see, but I was just doing a little star symbol just to kind of remind me. And then I also started doing a period tracker, and then I actually did associate the fact that, I used to get triggers like close to my periods as well, which is where I was like, okay, maybe if I take antivirals. And I've just been able to learn so much about my body by like tracking on a calendar and figuring all that out, because it is a lot of trial and error and everybody is different. But I think already just like even that arginine, I didn't even know what the hell that was. And I used to eat, I've actually weaned off it a lot, but I used to eat a lot of peanut butter and a lot of bananas. I used to smash all that because you think they're so healthy. I did accidentally smash a whole block of dark chocolate with sea salt tonight, but I'm getting my period today. So it's a one-off, but it's good to know. I've actually learned so much. Like, this is already so amazing. I know on your website, you've got a grocery list that you can actually download, and you've just got so many awesome tips and tricks. You've got a Facebook community for people with herpes as well. There's honestly so much on your website, and I think what you're delivering and putting out there is absolutely incredible, and so many people need to get access to it. I'm going to put everything in the show notes as well. I want to put your Instagram on the show notes, but yeah, we definitely need more people like you. You're only one person, but you're already doing so much, but we need more of you out there.
Yeah, thank you. It's so good to have guidance, especially because so many people feel so much shame around this stuff. And especially when they're new to their diagnosis, or at any time. They don't want to look it up. They don't want to learn anything about it. They just want to avoid it and pretend that it's not there, which of course, like, it's never fun to research this stuff, but I've done all of the research for you so that you don't have to do it. The best thing that you can do when you live with herpes is learn about it and learn how it works. And then you can sort of kind of start doing this trial and error. And I'm here to give you all the tools and knowledge. Like, this conversation was just a starting point. There's so much to learn about how you can manage and prevent your outbreaks within your body so you can prevent transmission to partners and feel really confident still in yourself when you live with herpes. And I've got my Healing Herpes Holistically Guide, which is like an ebook that I wrote to help people. I've got my herpes support group where we do monthly group support calls for people who really are struggling in their diagnosis. Community was the best thing, one of the best things that helped me in my journey of, living with herpes. It's so important so that you don't feel like you're alone in this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Because you're not.
Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to create as well. Like, I want community and I want people to, to understand they're not alone. It was a really hard thing to be public. I was public about a year and a half ago. And I actually got to work at Sexpo Australia, which is a big conference that we have. No, it's a conference, like big convention, that we have with like all different sex stalls. And I actually got to do the media coverage. And it was because I was open about, my STD, and that made me feel really incredible that I was making an impact. And so now on Oh Really podcast, I was like, all right, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to be open and, have my, it's on video, my face and everything's connected to this, but I don't care anymore. And it's because I want people to understand they're not alone, and not even just about herpes, about yeast infections and BV. And, there are so many shameful things that we go through in life. And I don't want people living in shame. I want people to understand that you can talk about this shit because, you get one life and you want to fucking love your life, and you don't want to be held back by something like a fucking stigma to do with herpes and not enjoy some of the best things in life, which is sex and feeling confident and sexy. So such a simple thing like understanding nutrition and finding those links to outbreaks is just one of the many things that I want to deliver with Oh Really podcast. So honestly, I could not thank you enough for coming on today with me. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's so important to talk about these things because, people feel so ashamed around their vaginal health and sexual health. It's not just about the herpes. It goes so much deeper than that. And you don't have to feel ashamed. These things are a part of being a sexually active human. It's just we weren't taught properly. We were taught to fear it, not actually learn about, these things are actually very manageable. It takes a little bit of time. It's a bit of a learning curve. It's a bit of a lifestyle change, but you've got people out here like me to help make it easier for you and, create a community for you to feel supported and like you're not alone through these journeys of dealing with our vaginal health because we all are we have to deal with so much as women and people with vaginas. I mean, it's just like never ending sometimes, but it really is learning about it, becoming a part of a community where you feel supported and you're seen and heard and not alone. And, just really moving forward in the best way.
Honestly, couldn't agree anymore. Honest, thank you so much, honestly, for coming on Oh Really podcast. I so appreciate it. I think you've delivered absolute gold. And, this is just scratching the surface. I know there's so much to cover, but I just wanted to scratch the surface and create the discussion about vaginal health, because I don't even think people understand like vaginal health and nutrition. They think that's already like, So we just scratched the surface of that. And if people want to know more, then obviously I've got you on the show notes. They can follow you on Instagram. They can have a look. And if they want to have a little call with you, or they can ask me questions to ask you, let's just all talk about it together, guys, and create a community. So thank you so much again for coming on Oh Really podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And everyone, remember to give me a 5-star review. Spread the love. I've got Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, Adrian's got Instagram. So make sure to give us all the love, and looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Bye.